Hello booktube, hello book friends. Welcome back to my channel and another video for Tag Tuesday. This is the Hurricanes, Tornadoes and Blizzards Oh My tag, which is an original tag about the weather. It was created by Michelle at Literary Michelle 2025, and I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. So this is a tag all about weather, natural disasters, and so on. It has 8 prompts and a tag other people prompt, and I've got a few books here to answer some of those prompts. So prompt number 1: how do you think an extreme weather event such as a hurricane, tornado, or blizzard impacts the plot of a book? It can impact it massively. Particularly if whatever the weather event is almost seen as a character in the story, and can form a major part of the storyline. And I think a couple of the books that I've picked here, that is the case. So we'll talk about those when we get to them. So problem number 2: name a book you enjoyed where some type of natural disaster or storm played a role in the story. I've actually picked a non-fiction book for this, and this is the book Granite Mountain by Brendan McDonough. This is a story of a wildfire crew, the Granite Mountain hotshots, who tragically nearly all of them lost their lives in a wildfire, and it's told by the kind of one of the, I think, the sole surviving member of the crew who didn't who wasn't killed, and this kind of follows the story of the crew, as they train and so on, and are deployed in various wildfires, and then obviously the story of what happens to them, and obviously the wildfires are fundamental to what's going on in the book. It's kind of narrative non-fiction. It's incredibly well written, and incredibly harrowing. It was made into a movie called Only the Brave, which I think has got I can't remember who's in it now. It might be I was going to say Kurt Russell, but I don't think it is. I think it's Jeff Bridges, and that movie is just a brilliant movie, and really kind of makes you think about these guys who put their lives on the line every time they go out to put out fires in the wilderness, particularly in the United States, and I think how much probably they are undervalued for what they do. So prompt number 3: have you ever experienced a weather event that had a lasting impact on you or was a memorable time in your life? Yes, several times, unfortunately. I've been caught up in 2 hurricanes, one back in 1987 and one back in, I think it was 89 or 1990, and I can remember both of those fairly well. I've also been involved in a sort of few flooding incidents where partly because that was one of my jobs many years ago, and responding to the flood incidents at the time. So I have experienced some fairly significant weather events. The storm of 1987 is kind of a bit of sort of British folklore, because a weatherman went on national TV that evening, and somebody had written to him to ask, was there going to be a hurricane, and he said no, it's not going to happen, and of course then it did, and I can remember that quite vividly. It sort of basically waking me up in the middle of the night, and I could hear things kind of flying around the garden, and the panes of glass on the on the greenhouse being broken, and then it obviously passed through in the night, and then in the morning, getting up to go to school, and kind of walking down. I used to have to catch a bus, so I would, walk down to the road, and then turn to walk up to the bus stop, and realised that there were lots of trees, like 5 or 6 big trees down across the road. Thinking, well, the bus isn't going to get through, is it? And then sort of thinking, well, I'll just have to go back home. Going back home and then looking kind of back up the other way up the road and seeing the same thing, and kind of like trees down all over the place. And there were basically books written about this, that it was so bad. And this, I don't think I've got loads of photos that I took at the time. But yeah, basically, all sorts of things that, it was at the time kind of unheard of. But you know, um, as I say, trees down, houses blown off roofs, boats kind of picked up from harbours and put, several hundred yards inland. A proper hurricane that other people have obviously experienced. So there's all sorts of pictures of this is basically a caravan park, trailer park, where all of the trailers have just been decimated. um, and lots of houses collapsed, churches with their steeples blown off. So, lots of damage. So yeah, I have been a few times caught up in weather events. I hope never really to be again, but I guess with climate change and the way the weather is becoming much more unpredictable, and violent at times, it's probably likely that I'll see a few more. Where did we get to? What is your favourite type of book to curl up with while a storm is raging outside? Thriller, romance, memoir? I don't know that I have a favourite. It would probably just be one of my kind of favourites anyway. So a kind of, a spy thriller or crime novel or something like that. I don't think it would be any different. Um, I probably wouldn't. It's a bit like, I just started reading Station 11 by Hilary Mantel, which, if you don't know, is about, the start of it is about basically a virus that decimates the population. And the story is then about what happens to some of the survivors. And I started reading that just in sort of March of 2020, just as everything was kicking off with COVID. And I actually had to put the book down. I thought, no, I can't. This is just too real life, and I can't read this. So I probably wouldn't read a book about, a storm during a storm, for example. Name a book character you've enjoyed who had to overcome or endure a weather-related hardship. The book I've picked for this is a crime novel. It's Firestorm by Nevada Barr. This is about a law enforcement ranger in the National Park Service in the US. And this one is set during a wildfire response. So, a lot of the rangers in the US in the Park Service have dual roles, and in this case, the ranger is Anna Pigeon, and she is assigned to a wildfire fighting crew. And during the response, they have to deploy their fire shelters, the emergency shelters they've got, that if they need to, if they can't evacuate and they have to stay put, they've got shelters that they can put up to, in theory, protect them to a degree against wildfire. And they have to deploy their shelters. And when fire has passed and they come out of their shelters, they discover that someone has been murdered, quite obviously murdered. It wasn't, as a result of the wildfire, and so she then has to investigate because she's a law enforcement ranger. So yeah, that's the, the the book character is Anna Pigeon. If you were told to evacuate your home, which 3 books are in your go bag and why? This has actually happened to me once, not as a result of a natural disaster, but basically somebody was welding a car in their garage, and let's just say the welding turned to a fire, and they set fire to the garage. And as a result, because they were using oxyacetylene cylinders, the fire brigade were really worried that the cylinders were going to explode because of the heat of the fire. So they evacuated everybody. And I didn't actually get a chance to pick up a go bag because I wasn't at home at the time that we were evacuated. I was literally coming home from work, driving down our road, saw that there was lots of fire engines and police cars and things about, and they had obviously taped off the road. So I stopped and said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Oh, well, there's fire, and you're going to be evacuated." So I didn't get a chance to get so much as a toothbrush and a change of underwear, which was interesting because it meant that I had to. My wife was at home. I had to phone her and say, "Did you know we're being evacuated?" She's like, "No." So she had to kind of grab a few things and the dog, and leave the house. And we thought we were going to be out for a couple of hours, and they just said no. It's going to be it was most of the next day. So we had to kind of go and buy, change of underwear, clean shirt, that sort of thing, toothbrush, wash kit, that sort of thing. And yeah, so I didn't get a chance to. So I'm not sure. That hasn't answered the question yet, has it? No. Which 3? I would probably just grab my Kindle, to be perfectly honest, and a charger and cable. And then I've got more than I don't think I could name. If you're evacuating your home, you're not going to stop and think which 3 books. I will tell you now. You're just going to grab whatever comes to hand if you haven't already got a go bag ready. So you might grab the book that's on your nightstand, or you might grab a Kindle or something like that. Number 7. If you were writing a novel and had to use one of the following, hurricane, blizzard, tornado, or wildfire, in the story, which would you choose and why? I think blizzard, just because it gives you more options in terms of how you could plot things around it. I think hurricane and tornado are just kind of tornado is kind of probably very violent, and if it's just one tornado and not a whole load of them coming together, passes through relatively quickly. Hurricane is probably a bit longer, but yeah, so I go blizzard, I think, just because it's likely to last longer and give a few more opportunities to kind of tell a story and so on. Number 8, is there a book on your current TBR that features some type of inclement weather or natural disaster? I had to think about this, and given that my TBR is basically any book that I haven't read, rather than a specific stack of books at the moment, I did pick out Doomer by Stephen King, because I think there is a storm or something in this at some point. I don't know because I haven't read it yet, but I'm reasonably sure that there is some kind of violent storm in it. And as I say, I haven't read it, so it's in my TBR. So I will, get to it at some point. And that's it. Tag some friends. So I will do my usual and tag some people down in the video description. But if you fancy having a go yourself, please feel free. I'll put the prompts down there as well. And thank you to Michelle for creating the tag. I think it was quite fun. And thank you to Pat for tagging me. And thank you to you guys as usual for watching. So I will speak to you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.